Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. It's my pleasure welcoming you to our fifth lesson for TSM 142 Tourism as an Industry. I remain Dr. Ibrahim Kokoye, your course facilitator. Today we shall be looking at tourism regulations. And by the word regulation, this implies the legal and quasi-legal relations which concerns tourist trade. That is, a traveler who is also a tourist is and is always governed by the laws and regulations in force in the country in which he or she has visited. Now, the essence of regulation, you and I will agree, is to ensure that we have some boundaries set for us so that we don't go beyond what is expected and we know our limitations as regards how we can behave. And that simply means having some laws in place that will guide how we behave. Remember, we discussed earlier during last class, tourism being an industry. The activities of the industry itself is governed by law. Remember, we offer service, we render service to people. And so those who render the service have certain regulations they have to follow so that they ensure that those they are rendering the services to are not cheated. And of course, you agree with me that when we talk about tourism, also we talk about the impact of tourism. So the tourist who is visiting also is also bound by some legal restrictions so that he or she also doesn't go beyond the approved limits for him wherever he or she has traveled to. Now, there are various types of tourism related laws enacted in different countries. These laws generally relate to protection of tourists, border controls, quality of services, protection of the environment, and conservation of historical sites and monuments. These are part of the basic reason why we have many of these regulations in place. And of course, last class when we looked at the issue, tourism organizations, most of those organizations we mentioned, we talked about the issue of regulation also as being part of some of their functions. At the international level, during last class, we mentioned the UNWTO. What that organization does also is basically trying to make certain laws and regulations that guides the practice of the tourism industry at global level. So also we have many of those organizations down to local levels. Now let's continue. Regulation, we said, is equally needed to avoid depopulation in tourist areas in order to maintain the social sustainability of activity and to avoid the local perception that the quality of life is being undermined, because that's what people usually say when an environment or area is subjected to tourism development. In other words, regulation can help an activity generate positive externalities. Now, in Nigeria, as of today, the specific regulation for tourism at the federal level is the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation (NTDC) Act, which is gazetted under cap number 137, Law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2004. The NTDC Act establishes the NTDC as the apex regulatory body for tourism industry in Nigeria. And this law also permits NTDC to also have state branches at different state level, whereby you have their representatives that helps in ensuring that the activities of the NTDC is made much more easier. But it's not only the NTDC Act that regulates activities of the tourism industry, because once we regard tourism activity as being an economic activity and is business inclined, Nigeria as a nation also have certain regulations that guides business activities, and tourism also, or tourism businesses or activities also not an exempted. And so we shall be looking at some of the other regulations that we have governing or guiding businesses in Nigeria that also matters to us in the tourism industry. And by so doing, Nigeria's tourism industry is regarded or regulated rather by the following set of laws governing business entry and establishment generally in Nigeria. Number one of them is the Company and Allied Matters Act, Cap 20 of Federal Law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2004. What the Companies and Allied Matters Act does is to govern the formation and regulation of businesses and business entities in Nigeria. Also, number two, we have the Companies Income Tax Act, Cap 21, Law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004. What this law also does is to regulate income tax payable by companies in Nigeria. By this, we mean tourism establishments are also bound by the regulations of this particular law. Number three is the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion Act, Cap number 62, Law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004. This regulation regulates the acquisition of foreign technology in Nigeria. And of course, you agree with me that the growth of tourism industry in Nigeria today and the future trend we are looking at is technology dependent. So any new technology you are going to be bringing into Nigeria as a practitioner or as an operator in the industry, you must follow the dictates of this particular law. Lastly among them is the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission Act, Cap 17, Law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004. And this also regulates foreign investment in Nigeria. Of course, we know that to develop tourism, we are not going to limit ourselves only to local investors. We bring in foreigners who has the money that can help invest and develop the tourism sector for us. But as we consider bringing them in, we must also consider regulations guiding bringing in those foreign investors. On that note, may be imperative for us to now look further the operations, the activities of tourists itself, part of the regulations that govern or guide them. And that will lead us to regulations with respect to tour operation in the tourism industry. Basically, this regulation that we have is commonly applied when we talk about international tourism. And number one of them is the law that talks about what is required by law of an individual that is traveling. One is the issue of identity, and that leads us to the international passport. Aside from having an international passport, the law also permits that, except where there is a bilateral agreement between two nations, any individual needs to get an approval, a permit to enter another country which is not his or her country of origin. And that is when we talk about the visa. Aside from that, we have issue of health challenges that makes it also important by regulation that we must have some health certificates. We talk about immunization, we talk about vaccination cards. And also we now talk about the issue of travel insurance and the TIM, which is the travel information manual. Now let's take them one after the other briefly. Number one that is very, very key by law is the passport. The passport generally is an official document issued by a competent public authority to nationals or to alien residents of the issuing country. And we have different types of passport. You agree with me? We have the normal passport that we all carry about, for instance, in Nigeria that we call the green passport. But aside from that, we also have what is called alien passport. This is issued to nationals of other countries that are residents in Nigeria and that Nigerian government have already recognized legally living here, but now wishes to carry Nigerian passport. Those are the people we refer to as aliens, and we issue them alien passports. Originally, by birth, they are not Nigerian, but they are Nigerian because they are residents in Nigeria. That's why we refer to them as alien. Number three is the children identity card. Number four among them, we have the diplomatic or what we call consular passport. We have the official passport and service passport that is issued to seamen, and we have some other international passport that is issued or travel certificate issued by United Nations, International Red Cross, seamanship discharge certificate for seamen, and the likes. So all those are different kinds of passport that is required by a regulation or by law for you to identify yourself when you are traveling. Also, that I mentioned the other time, is the visa. The visa basically is an entry permit usually attached to a passport, that allows the bearer or the carrier the authority to enter and re-enter the country concerned. Usually, as I have earlier mentioned also, visa regulations are drawn up by bilateral relationship, or drawn up in a bilateral relationship or agreement between two countries. Country A and country B will decide what is required for our respective indigenes to enter our country and when not to enter, and how many times you are to enter. Because what a visa will carry, it will tell the date, it will tell how many permits or how many entries that you are allowed when you tender such, or when you are given such a visa. I also have different kinds of visa. We have the normal visitor visa, we have what we call the transit visa, the transit without visa, we have the re-entry permits, we also have what we call exit permits, the Schengen visa that is common to the Schengen states in Europe. We have what we call the tourist card and visa waiver program. Example of that is the American visa lottery, the Canadian visa lottery, and it's given to people without necessarily getting the normal visa to enter. So that is more or less like a waiver program for people. And at times we also have that is also issued to people in the state of health, challenges, war, and when people want to seek asylum and the likes. So now the third one that we have mentioned there is the health certificates. It's also required by regulation in the tourism industry when you want to travel, mostly, as I have mentioned, for international travel. Now the essence of this is to ensure or guarantee health security and preventive measures of travelers, and this is achieved usually through immunization and certification of the travelers. Example of that is the yellow fever card that we carry about, and give it the COVID-19 that we are currently even in now. Now it's now imperative that when you want to travel, you also need to present your COVID-19 vaccination card, just to ensure that the risk of you contracting the disease or you spreading the disease to other people where you are traveling to is reduced. And we have so many others. What really matters is the current state of health and the agreement between your country and whatever country you are traveling in. Some countries, as we speak today, need to carry evidence that they have been immunized or that they are free from Ebola, Lassa fever, and some other diseases that are currently ravaging people across the globe. We also have the issue of taxes, customs, currencies, amount of money that you can travel with by regulation, what the custom allow you to travel with or bring into a country. It's also drawn up by regulation, and there are certain taxes you are also meant to pay at the airport when you are traveling. When your luggage is bigger than what is approved, there are certain levies you are meant to pay and the likes of that. All those are part of regulations that guide the travel industry. And also it is required that you also have what we call travel insurance, just to ensure that when you travel, you are covered. And lastly, we have what we call the Travel Information Manual, TIM. The TIM also is a compendium of requirements that is expected of any traveler that is visiting a country. The TIM today has been made electronically through what we call the thematic web. So through the thematic web, you are going to see information about what is required by law between country A and B, or what is required by law to enter any country, and where there is where there is a waiver for any country, you will see whether the waiver concerns your country or your country can benefit from the waiver, or your country is not exempted. We call it exemption. That's the normal term in tourism. There are countries with exemption, there are countries that are not exempted. So all those regulations are what we use in guiding operations and business generally in the tourism industry. So once again, you are welcome to the class, and I'll take you through the slides as we progress in the class. Thank you very much, and God bless.